If I were starting a business today, I wouldn't begin with a logo, a website, or even a product. I wouldn't rush to register a company name or spend weeks perfecting an idea in my head. I would start somewhere far more uncomfortable, far more honest, and far more powerful. I would start by watching how people actually live, what quietly frustrates them, and what they complain about when they think no one is listening. Because the truth is, business today isn't about genius ideas anymore. It's about awareness. The world moves too fast for perfect plans. Trends rise and disappear before most people even notice them. Technology keeps shifting the rules. Attention has become the most valuable currency on the planet. And in a landscape like this, the biggest mistake is building something you personally like instead of something people already want. If I were starting a business now, I would slow down before speeding up. I would listen before speaking. I would observe before creating. And I would accept something that many people avoid admitting. The best businesses are not born from inspiration, they're born from friction. Every successful business you admire exists because something felt broken, inefficient, annoying, or outdated. Someone noticed a small inconvenience that everyone else had learned to tolerate. Someone paid attention to a problem hiding in plain sight, and instead of ignoring it, they leaned into it. I would begin by asking a simple question over and over again. What feels unnecessarily hard right now? What takes too long? What feels confusing when it shouldn't? What do people complain about but assume will never change? I would read comments, reviews, and forums, not to argue, but to listen. I would pay attention to the language people use when they're frustrated, because that language reveals exactly how they think. I would notice patterns, repeated emotions, and shared pain points. Not dramatic problems, small, everyday annoyances that quietly drain energy. Because small problems are powerful. Small problems are personal. And when you solve something personal, people remember you. Once I found a real problem, I wouldn't rush to solve it with something massive. I wouldn't aim to build the biggest platform or the most complex system. I would aim for something simple enough to explain in a single breath, something clear enough that a stranger immediately understands its value without being convinced. Clarity is everything. If people don't understand what you do instantly, they don't care how impressive it is. Confusion kills momentum faster than competition ever could. I would build something that does one thing extremely well. Not 10 things, not a full solution, just one clear improvement over what already exists. Because focus is not a limitation, focus is leverage. Then I would test it before polishing it. I would share it before perfecting it. I would let the market respond honestly, even if the response hurts, especially if the response hurts. Because feedback is not rejection. Feedback is direction. If people ignore it, that tells you something. If people criticize it, that tells you something. If people misunderstand it, that tells you something. Silence is not failure. Silence is information. Most people fail not because their idea was bad, but because they refused to listen when reality spoke back. At this stage, I would not chase validation. I would chase alignment. Does this solve a real problem? Does it feel useful? Does it fit naturally into someone's life? Would they miss it if it disappeared? If the answer isn't clear, I would adjust without ego. I would refine the message, the offer, or the experience until it feels obvious instead of impressive. And here's where many people get it wrong. They think business success comes from being louder. In reality, it comes from being clearer. Once clarity exists, attention follows. If I were starting a business now, I would treat attention with respect. I wouldn't see it as something to exploit, but something to earn. People are overwhelmed. They scroll past thousands of messages every day. If someone gives you a moment of their focus, you owe them value, honesty, and relevance. I would build an audience before trying to extract anything from it. I would share what I'm learning. I would document the process instead of pretending to be an expert from day one. I would speak like a human, not a brand. Because trust is the foundation everything else sits on. People don't support businesses, they support people they believe understand them. And trust is built through consistency, not perfection. I would show up regularly, not everywhere, but somewhere that fits my voice and energy. I would choose one primary platform and commit to it fully, not because it's trending, but because it allows real connection. I would talk about the problem I'm solving from different angles. I would answer questions people are afraid to ask. I would share mistakes openly. I would avoid hype and exaggeration because those always come back to haunt you. And I would remember this: attention is rented, trust is owned. Once trust is there, selling becomes a conversation, not a performance. At this point, I would focus deeply on the experience, not just the product, but how people feel when they interact with it. Is it intuitive? Is it respectful of their time? Does it feel human or mechanical? People remember how you make them feel long before they forget what you said. I would remove friction wherever possible. I would simplify language. I would make decisions easier. I would reduce steps, confusion, and unnecessary complexity. Because convenience is no longer a luxury, it's an expectation. If something feels difficult, people don't complain, they leave. And here's a truth that doesn't get talked about enough. Loyalty is not built through discounts or tricks. It's built through reliability, doing what you said you would do consistently without excuses. If I were starting a business now, I would obsess over delivering on small promises before making big ones. I would think long-term, even while moving fast. I wouldn't chase short bursts of attention at the cost of credibility. I wouldn't sacrifice trust for quick growth, because growth without trust collapses under pressure. I would ask myself regularly, if this business grows, will I still be proud of how it started? Midway through this journey, something interesting usually happens. Doubt shows up, momentum slows, the excitement fades, and this is where many people quit. So here's the secondary hook. If I were starting a business now, I would prepare for this moment before it arrives. I would understand that motivation is unreliable, but systems are dependable. I would build habits that support progress even on days when inspiration disappears. I would track what matters, reflect often, and adjust intentionally. I would surround myself with honest feedback, not empty praise. I would stay curious instead of defensive. And I would remember that discomfort is not a signal to stop. It's often a signal that growth is happening. And I would stop comparing my early stages to someone else's highlight reel. Comparison drains energy and clarity. Focus restores both. As the business grows, I would stay close to the customer. I would never assume I know better than the people I serve. I would listen continuously, not just at the beginning. Markets change, people change, expectations evolve. The businesses that survive are the ones that evolve with them. I would also protect my integrity fiercely. I would avoid shortcuts that feel wrong, even if they promise faster results. I would understand that reputation compounds both positively and negatively. One careless decision can undo years of trust. One honest correction can strengthen it. If I made a mistake, I would own it quickly. If something didn't work, I would explain why. Transparency builds resilience. And I would remind myself often why I started in the first place. Not for status, not for applause, but to solve something meaningful in a way that aligns with who I am. Because burnout doesn't come from hard work, it comes from working without alignment. If I were starting a business now, I would build something that fits my life, not something that consumes it. I would define success on my own terms, not borrow someone else's definition. I would leave room for rest, reflection, and creativity, because sustainable success requires energy, not just effort. Toward the end of this journey, I would step back and look at what was created. Not just revenue or growth, but impact. Did this make something easier? Did it help someone save time, reduce stress, or feel understood? That's the final emotional hook. Business is not just about building something that works, it's about building something that matters. If I were starting a business now, I would do it with patience, clarity, and respect for the people on the other side of the screen. I would build slowly where it matters and move quickly where it counts. And if you're thinking about starting something of your own, remember this: you don't need permission, you don't need perfection, you need awareness, consistency, and the courage to listen. If this perspective resonated with you, take a moment to support the channel by liking this video.
Subscribe if you want more thoughtful conversations about business, growth, and building things that last. And I'd genuinely love to hear your thoughts. What kind of business would you start and why? Share it in the comments and let's talk about it together.